you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to News 9. I'm Kabir Naqvi, and you're watching the special broadcast from our studios here in the National Capital Region. Of course, the focus is going to be Donald Trump's return to the White House. That's right, 47th President of the United States. Currently, the electoral votes, the numbers look like this: 277 for Donald Trump, 224 for the Kamala Harris camp. Of course, we're awaiting results for what we can look at: Nevada, Arizona, Minnesota. You've got two electoral centers that are still to come out with their numbers from Maine as well. But all in all, that 270 figure, it has been breached. But over the course of the next 40 odd minutes, we're going to talk about how exactly Donald Trump was able to trump Kamala Harris and the entire campaign. How did he win this time around? Because in this unprecedented political comeback, J.D. Vance went on to say that this is not just a political comeback, but also going to be one of the most historic economic comeback for the Grand Old Party. Donald Trump has returned to claim the presidency as the 47th President of the United States. He secured victory in all the 7 swing states, won the electoral vote, and made history as the first Republican in 20 years to win the popular vote. Trump, in his victory speech, said that this is a political victory that our country has never seen before. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president. This will truly be the golden age of America. In that victory speech, of course, he was waiting for Pennsylvania to be called out, and right after Pennsylvania turned red, he came out at that Palm Beach, Florida resort, speaking to thousands of MAGA supporters that had gathered there. And in his address, he vowed immediate action on America's borders, promising to seal them tightly and prevent illegal immigration. Speaking on global affairs, Donald Trump highlighted and hinted at the ongoing conflict, saying, "Won't start a war. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be ending one," signaling a strong stance on the foreign policy as well. On the domestic front, he pledged to cut federal income taxes significantly, calling it part of his commitment to a stronger American economy. Donald Trump also announced that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., known for his stance on vaccines, would lead the administration's health initiatives, aiming, as Trump put it, to make America healthy again. Let's break down how Donald Trump managed this big win. The big story everyone's talking about at this point in time. Now, first off, this comeback of Donald Trump, needless to say, is historic. Trump's now just the second president in United States history to lose the White House, then win it back again. And this election shows that he is still a powerful and polarizing figure who's redefined the Republican Party altogether. Think about it. A party once known for free trade now rallies behind tariffs. All Donald Trump's doing. But let's also talk about issues that people voted on. Trump tapped into economic discontent. People are feeling the pinch from years of inflation and a sense that things aren't as affordable as they used to be. He painted himself as the candidate who'd tackle prices head on, whilst Harris struggled to connect on the economic issues. Trump will fix it. That was the banner that you could see all across the length and breadth of the country. Then there's immigration, ladies and gentlemen. Under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, one could see high records of numbers at the border. While they did eventually respond, Trump convinced many that his approach was tougher and would deliver results. And that message, it stuck with the working class now, didn't it? The working class voters in particular. On the foreign policy front, Donald Trump tapped into fears around America's role on the global stage. People see the wars we're facing from Ukraine to West Asia and feel disillusioned. Donald Trump argued that with him in charge, these conflicts wouldn't even be happening. It's not that voters are turning anti-war. They just didn't feel confident in how Democrats were handling things. But what's interesting is that despite numerous controversies, Donald Trump's support, it held strong. He had his share of eyebrow-raising comments on the campaign trail, but his base stuck with him. And in the end, issues like the economy and immigration mattered more to his voters than any of the scandals. And here's the surprise. He even expanded his base. Donald Trump drew increased support from black and Hispanic voters, especially young men. And though he had a gap with women, male turnout more than made up for it. According to the AP Votecast data, black and Latino voters were slightly less likely to support Kamala Harris than they were likely to support Joe Biden 4 years ago. Around 8 in 10 black voters backed Kamala Harris, but that's down from 9 in 10 who supported Joe Biden back in 2020. And similarly, more than half of the Hispanic voters backed Harris, but that's also a slight drop from the 6 in 10 who voted for Joe Biden. So to sum it up, Donald Trump won big, won by tapping into the economic frustrations of the ordinary Americans, doubling down on a hard stance on immigration, and positioning himself as the leader who could steer America's interests on the global stage. And with this, he has remade the political map yet again.
Republican Donald Trump has won the 2024 presidential election, becoming the first convicted felon elected to the nation's highest office. He is also the first former president since Grover Cleveland to return to the White House after being voted out of the job. The 78-year-old is the oldest person in U.S. history to be elected president, and his victory caps one of the longest general election campaigns ever, which included 2 assassination attempts. Here's what Trump has said he would do in his second term.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
A central campaign promise was deporting millions of migrants, which would likely trigger legal challenges. He has said he will employ the National Guard and, if necessary, federal troops as part of the effort.
If I run this country, if I'm going to be president of this country, I'm going to put a 100, 200, 2,000% tariff.
Trump has floated the idea of tariffs on all goods imported into the U.S., targeting China in particular. Critics say that would lead to higher prices for American consumers and global economic instability.
No tax on tips.
Trump has promised a blizzard of tax proposals and said he wants to extend the Trump tax cuts that he signed in 2017. But several prominent budget forecasters have estimated Trump's tax cut plans would add as much as $6.6 trillion to federal deficits over a decade.
We're going to drill, baby, drill.
Trump has vowed to increase U.S. production of fossil fuels and said he will reauthorize oil drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska. He also has said he will again pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accords.
And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly.
Trump, who has been critical of U.S. support for Ukraine in its war with Russia, said he could end the conflict in 24 hours if elected, although he has not said how he would do that. Trump has also said the war between Israel and Hamas should end quickly, but has offered no proposals for how to do that either.
Everybody wanted it back in the States, and I did that.
Trump has said bans on abortion should be up to states, and if they choose, could monitor women's pregnancies and prosecute them if they undergo the procedure after the period permitted. He appointed 3 justices to the U.S. Supreme Court who were part of the conservative majority that overturned Roe v. Wade protections and would likely continue to appoint federal judges who would uphold limits on abortion.
We have an enemy from within.
Trump has said he could use federal law enforcement agencies to investigate political opponents and has threatened to make firing federal workers easier with an executive order. He has said he would fire special counsel Jack Smith, the federal prosecutor leading the criminal probes into his alleged mishandling of classified documents and his attempts to overturn his 2020 election defeat. He has also said he will consider pardoning all of those who have been convicted of crimes in connection with the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial.
Trump became the first former U.S. president to be convicted of a crime in May after a New York jury found him guilty of falsifying business records to cover up a payment to silence a porn star during his 2016 campaign. He is still scheduled to be sentenced for that conviction on November 26th, and the judge could decide to send him to jail.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends on this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes. But it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path. There was no other path to victory. We also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that.
And well, to talk more about how Donald trumped Kamala Harris, joining me on the broadcast is Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Pramit Pal Chaudhary, analyst, Eurasia Group. Always a pleasure to be speaking to you. Also, of course, a special guest with us on the show tonight, Shelby Williams, political strategist for the Republican Party, joins us on the broadcast as well. Shelby, first and foremost to you, because, you know, I have data on the voters of color, the gender gap, the age gap, the swing states, but I'll tell you what, this redefinition of the Republican Party, you know, going from free trade to now a tariff-centric poll plank, moving from global policing to isolationism, and of course broadened support. We're looking at young voters that have stepped out, black voters that have come out and, you know, supported Donald Trump as well. Help one understand, how did Donald trump the Kamala Harris campaign?
Well, in a nutshell, it was the same way that he won in 2016. And then the polls were wrong. He was unexpected to win the presidency. And I predicted months ago that I thought Donald Trump would win in an electoral college vote that was similar to 2016. And even though not all of the states are in, that's about what it's looking like. And after a very long time in 2016, people had just had enough of politics as usual in America. And that's why Trump was elected. Sure, he talks brash, but people really felt that connection to his authenticity. And now in 2024, after the past 4 years, people, after Joe Biden was president and after Kamala Harris was vice president, people said, okay, we had 4 good years under President Trump. We had 4 pretty bad years under Biden-Harris. We need to go back to that. And they recast their votes, and they said pretty much the exact same thing they said in 2016. We don't want any new wars. We want things to be affordable again. We want prosperity and freedom for everybody in America. And that's what happened last night.
You know, as soon as the administration, you know, it shapes up, it is going to take some time. What do you think is going to be the first move of President Donald Trump on the domestic front? Is it going to be tariffs, or is it going to be the wall that the president keeps on talking about?
Actually, I don't think it's going to be either of those. I think those are priorities. On tariffs for a moment, I don't think that President Trump believes in tariffs for tariff's sake. I think that there has been an imbalance, not in the amount of trade, I don't think that's important, but in the fairness of trade with other countries for a long time, notably China, who is one of the greatest perpetrators of the theft of intellectual property on the planet. And President Trump's use of tariffs has been to bring other countries to the table in fair agreements for trade. But I think his chief priority, especially after 4 years of his presidency previously, and as he's spoken about with Elon Musk as Secretary of Government Efficiency, I think he's going to seriously reduce the size and the scope of the executive branch of the federal government. Elon Musk tweeted out the other day that he cut Twitter's staff by 80% and it's thriving. What if we do the same thing to the federal government? Everybody knows there's a lot of waste with the U.S. federal government, and I think that is going to be his top priority, is to get rid of that waste.
But Donald Trump focused more on male voters throughout the campaign, through podcasts, sports. Of course, J.D. Vance himself, being, a former American football coach, also helped the cause. But in Pennsylvania and Georgia, Donald Trump pretty much retained the white women voters from 2016. How was that, like for the entire campaign? How did the campaign make that possible?
Well, there were a lot of factors that went into that, but one principal factors that we reflected in Collin County in Texas in our marketing, which is make groceries affordable again, make the border secure again, and make our kids safe again. People everywhere in America, in India, all over the world pretty much want the same thing. They want opportunity for their families, they want safety and security for their families, and they want the chance for prosperity. Pennsylvania was no exception. No state was an exception. And suburban women who Trump did not do well with in 2020, after the past 4 years of skyrocketing inflation and all sorts of dangers flooding into their community, suburban women were like, okay, yeah, we want a return to sanity. And they turned out like everybody else turned out for the Republican Party.
Well, all right. He did certainly come back with those historical figures as well. Shall we do stay on with us? Pramit Pal Chaudhary, analyst, Eurasia Group, also is with us on the broadcast. Pramit, you heard what Shelby was talking about. Of course, Kamala Harris got less women support, standing at 54% than Joe Biden at 57%. And women, that electoral, particular constituency that Kamala Harris was trying to woo right from the get-go, abortion was a big issue. The women out there, at least the black community, wanted to see the first black woman president. What went wrong for Kamala camp?
Well, good question. The black women did vote in her favor, but she did not do so. Obviously, she did very poorly she did less well than Biden did among both Latino women and white women. I think that while abortion is an issue, the vast majority of women in the United States do support the idea of abortion rights. It is secondary. It became secondary to other issues that included inflation, crime, maybe also immigration. It's hard to tell what the women specifically wanted, but inflation was a very big issue for women. I mean, it's their household costs that were rising the fastest. And that definitely that affected them. Harris, I would also argue, was not the strongest of candidates. She didn't remember in the Democratic primary, if I'm correct, she only won about 2% of the vote. She was wiped out very quickly when she tried to run. And she is in many ways an accidental presidential candidate because of the sudden mental collapse of Joe Biden and the inability, the lack of time for the Democrats to choose another candidate. And I don't think she was all that impressive. She was a nice person, if you wish. It was clear but in interviews and so on, it was very hard to pin her down as to what she actually believed in, or actually had a sense of a belief that she had a policy focus, if you want. And given the short amount of time, those impressions were important. But, you know, one other thing about abortion, and you can read an Indian sociologist, Dipankar Gupta, has written a piece on this in the Indian press. He said in the 1960s and 1970s, abortion was a major issue because contraception was a poor technology, and abortion was widespread among women. It was a unwanted pregnancies were a huge issue. But if you look at the numbers, unwanted pregnancies have dropped off drastically since then, simply because technology is so much better. Presumably, women and men are more cautious about how they do sex.
Essentially, abortion as an issue ended up taking the back seat. You had inflation and crime that took the front seat, that went on to the driving seat. All right, pertinent points that you've raised over there. Also with us on the broadcast, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat. Sir, you're going to have to wait for just a short while. We're going to have to slip into a quick commercial break here. But on the other side, there are lots of interesting things that we need to talk about. Cool, Elon Musk was also mentioned a couple of times in that victory speech. And of course, the wiping out of ISIS. And then I'm not going to start a new war. I'm rather going to end one, was certainly the message that trickled to the farthest parts of the globe. Right on the other side with the esteemed set of panelists with me. Don't go anywhere.
Look what happened. Is this crazy? Fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
The next Indian icons, beating everyone on the globe. B6E and XEV9E. Mahindra's electric origin SUVs. Catch them at Unlimit India.
Look what happened. Is this crazy? Fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond. Look what happened. Is this crazy? Fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
Welcome back. 277 for Donald Trump, 224 for Kamala Harris. Those are the electoral vote numbers at this point in time. And in his victory speech, Donald Trump had indicated one of the major policy decisions he will make will likely be talking about or working to end the wars around the world. Though he did not say where, Ukraine and Israel have been cited by geopolitical experts as the likely focus of the Trump 2.0 dispensation. He said, I'm not going to start wars, I'm going to stop wars. The Republican U.S. presidential nominee in his victory speech. Listen in.
Analysis of the people that voted for us. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. They came from all quarters, union, non-union, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. We had everybody, and it was beautiful. It was a historic realignment, uniting citizens of all backgrounds around a common core of common sense. You know, we're the party of common sense. We want to have borders. We want to have security. We want to have things be good, safe. We want great education. We want a strong and powerful military, and ideally we don't have to use it. You know, we had no wars. 4 years we had no wars, except we defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS in record time. But we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. But this is also a massive victory for democracy and for freedom. Together, we're going to unlock America's glorious destiny. We're going to achieve the most incredible future for our people. Yesterday, as I stood at my last stop on the campaign trail, I'll never be doing a rally again. Can you believe it? I think we've done 900 rallies approximately from them. Can you imagine? 900, 901, something, a lot of rallies. And it was sad. Everybody was sad. Many people, I said, this is our last rally. But now we're going on to something that's far more important, because the rallies were used for us to be put in this position where we can really help our country. That's what we're going to do.
We had no wars for 4 years. We had no wars except we defeated ISIS. On the broadcast with me, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat. Ambassador, you know, very quickly, because we earlier heard Mr. Williams talk about the same thing as well, that, you know, he is really fiery with his speeches, but he did hit on the foreign diplomacy end as well. He said, I'm going to put an end to these wars. And people weren't necessarily, happy with how Harris and the Biden administrations were dealing with the entire episode. Ukraine, Israel, the war funding, and of course, we need to talk about Dhaka as well. India and Bangladesh friendship being put to the test. Sheikh Hasina has written a letter of congratulations to Donald Trump already. How do you look at Donald Trump coming back to the fold and the foreign policy of United States?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. But before I address your question relating to the foreign policy aspect, I want to very briefly speak about what were the factors which went wrong for Kamala Harris. Very briefly. Yes. I spent more than 2 months in the United States during the summer, and I met a lot of people. And there were great concerns about inflation because the rising costs were affecting everybody. There were concerns about housing because mortgage rates had been raised during the Biden administration. People were finding it more expensive to buy houses. At the same time, people were preferring to rent, so rents went up. So people who needed housing were facing problems. Then, of course, there was this problem relating to illegal immigrants, and a lot of people who were among the lower sections of American society, the skilled or semi-skilled workers, the unskilled workers, they were finding it difficult to get employment. Of course, a lot of that was because of the economic downturn due to the COVID, but a lot of their anger was directed against illegal migrants. Now, recently, Kamala Harris was interviewed by a well-known American program called The View. And she was asked this question, what would you do which is different from what President Biden had done as the President of the United States? And she says, nothing at all. Now, this sort of thing was said by her on other occasions also. And it has not gone down well with American voters, because American voters were disenchanted with the policy of the Biden administration, particularly in regard to the three areas I mentioned: inflation, housing, and illegal immigrants. And they wanted the new president to be very decisive in regard to taking action. So this very fact that Kamala Harris was facing headwinds from the Biden administration went against her. And had she showed more vigor in earmarking areas where she would take very specific action, which would be different from what was taken under President Biden, perhaps it may have gone better for her. Now, to come down to the foreign policy aspect, which is very important. You know, the world is suffering from a lot of problems because of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war and the conflict in the Middle East. Everybody wants this war to stop. Unfortunately, that war is not coming to an end, and there are expectations from the new president in this context. Donald Trump has repeatedly said that he will put an end to this war. Now, let's look at how he will do it. Donald Trump is not a NATO enthusiast. In his first term, he had tried to distance himself from NATO. In fact, he wanted to pull out of it. But in any case, while he continued in NATO, he was insistent that NATO members from Europe should pay their dues, because there are a lot of NATO members who are not paying their dues. So he's not a terribly great fan of NATO. And in particular, he has never been supportive of NATO stretching out to the Russian frontiers and including Ukraine, for instance. So, for one thing, he will put pressure on NATO to drop this whole idea of including Ukraine, and he will at the same time stop giving more and more weapons to Ukraine. He has been against this policy of arming Ukraine. In fact, the bulk of the American people who are working class are also against this, because they feel that the huge amount of money which is being spent on giving weapons to Ukraine is actually going from their pockets. They are the taxpayers.
All right.
So if he tries to end the arming of Ukraine, it is something that will go down well with the people. And incidentally, he can certainly put pressure on Ukraine in this regard and broker a peace. As I said, that will involve stopping the steady arms supplies to Ukraine. It will involve getting Ukraine to withdraw its membership from NATO. It's a difficult task, but there seems to be no other way that he can bring the war to an end. I may also mention that he will probably get Russia to make some concessions, and what is achievable is Russia vacating the occupied parts of Ukraine, but not the Crimea. The Crimea happened long ago in 2014. It will be very difficult to get Russia to vacate that. But even if he can get some sort of a face-saving deal for Ukraine, it will work.
A lot of people are now saying, Ambassador, that because Donald Trump is back in the White House, things will certainly start moving again on the Ukraine front and all the Israel front as well. Iran, nuclear power. I was reading a couple of things. I'm not going to stick my neck out at this point in time. Let's give the man his fair share of time to rebuild the administration, and we'll come back to this particular question. But back to Shelby Williams, the political strategist for the Republican Party, joining us live from Texas, the big red state in the United States. Coming back to how Donald Trump was able to capture the imagination of the young Americans out there. I mean, national exit polls suggested instantly that he edged Harris with people aged 18 and 44. Trump beat Harris with men essentially aged 45 plus. How was this possible? What was done specifically for this?
Well, because he's not a polished politician. That's from the moment he announced his presidency his presidential run in 2015. He did not act like a polished politician. He never had a political history, and other than interacting with politicians. but that really resonated with so many people. And the fact that he ran his campaigns in 2016, 2020, and 2024 with the overarching message of making America great again really hit home with a number of people. Now, obviously, for the past 4 years, he hasn't been in the White House, but almost immediately when President Biden took the Oval Office, things started to go downhill, even from the disastrous year of 2020. And everybody saw it, everybody felt it. And so what really hit home with every demographic across, we heard President Trump speak about that in that clip, every age group was, we live in America. People around the world want to come to America for a reason. That is worth preserving, that is worth fighting for, and that is worth restoring. So it just deeply resonated with everybody and gave him a monumental lift. And like I said, it looks like the final electoral college count is going to be pretty close to what it was in 2016. And Trump is ahead in the popular vote, importantly.
Yep, absolutely. Popular vote. In a Republican candidate in 20 years winning the popular vote, that by itself is a historical, aspect to look at. But Pramit Pal, would you subscribe to what Mr. Williams here was talking about? This unpolished articulation by Donald Trump. We've seen slurs, sometimes racial as well. All those Puerto Rican and, the Haitians eating and stealing pets, all those allegations that were leveled by Donald Trump. On the other hand, you had a Kamala Harris, a very polished bureaucrat. Did that help capture the imagination of the young audience out there, the robust, the ruggedness, the unpolished articulation of Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, there is a case that Trump was a voice of authenticity. He basically said what he believed in, and he was quite open about it. There have been articles and interviews of young black men who are asked, why are you prepared to support Trump, given that he is seems quite racist, and they would say, yeah, all white guys are racist. He's at least he's open about it. So we don't care. We're not that worried about that. Trump was also helped by the fact that he talks a lot of things which an assumption is that a president won't actually act on, because and the fact that he kept saying these things repeatedly, after a while, voters in many ways became numb to them, and I would argue that he got away with things that a normal presidential candidate would have had a lot of trouble with. But the point is that Harris was not, I mean, she might have positioned herself as a technocratic politician, but in reality she wasn't. In her interviews repeatedly, when asked about hard policy decisions, she basically fudged. It was never clear what she stood for many times, and she just would laugh off difficult questions. So at the end of it, it was very difficult for anybody to, even among her supporters, to work out what she wanted. And it was interesting that I think it was in the CNN polls indicated that while only about 8%, I think, of Trump supporters voted for him because they didn't like Kamala Harris, about 25 or some 30% of Kamala Harris's voters voted only for her, not because they liked her, but only because they disliked Trump. And that is a clear evidence to me that even among the base of her party, there was a lot of unhappiness with the quality of her candidacy.
All right, then. Another pertinent point, Pramit. But, then again, there was a light-hearted moment when Donald Trump looked at Kennedy and said, leave the oil to me, emphasizing his own plans for America's energy sector. Also, of course, he addressed Elon Musk as the new super cool dude, likely to be part of the administration as well. Right on the other side, we're going to discuss about Elon Musk and his possible role with Donald Trump. All those aspects, don't go anywhere. A quick short break for now.
Look what happened. Is this crazy? Fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond.
The next Indian icons, beating everyone on the globe. B6E and XEV9E. Mahindra's electric origin SUVs. Catch them at Unlimit India.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
Cooking is an act of law. The first act of law we receive from our mothers in the families.
Modern Indian food is all about contemporary and innovative approach to traditional Indian cooking.
Representation it's also important, no?
I want to wear this white coat every day and then be a chef.
There are stories. If the name of whiskey is Indri, then there is a whole story behind that.
Cooking food is like a therapy, and eating one is like a pleasure I can give it to myself. With Lounge Nights, I'm on a journey to celebrate and recognize the best food and nightlife establishments in various cities across India.
Radical presents Lounge Nights every Saturday and Sunday only on News9 Live.
Look what happened. Is this crazy? Fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond.
Welcome back. You're watching the special broadcast on News 9, trying to decode how Donald trumped the Kamala Harris camp. And of course, with me, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat, Pramit Pal Chaudhary, analyst, Eurasia Group, and Shelby Williams, political strategist, Republican Party, joining us live from Texas, United States of America. But addressing his supporters, Donald Trump, he called for resilience and strength, reflecting on his survival through the 2 assassination attempts. But more importantly, with promises of a bigger, better, richer and safer America, Donald Trump's vision for his next term paints a picture of bold reforms and renewed patriotism. And in a nod to the future of innovation, he praised Elon Musk as a new star worth protecting, highlighting the value he places on American genius.
Let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy. We were sitting together tonight. You know, he spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and different parts of Pennsylvania campaigning. You know, he sent the rocket up 2 weeks ago, and I saw that rocket, and I saw it coming down. I saw it. It was, when it left, it was beautiful, shiny white. When it came down, it didn't look so pretty. It was going 10,000 miles an hour, and it was burning like hell. I said, what happened to your paint job? He said, we've never made a paint that could withstand that kind of heat. And but I saw it come down and turn around. And it was, you know, it's like 22 stories tall, by the way. It looks a little smaller than that, but it's big. And it came down, and you saw all that fire burning. And I'm saying, only Elon can do this. It must be an Elon. And I tell the story. I told it last night. I had a man on the phone. I had the screen muted, no sound. I was talking to a very important man, happens to be here. And that very important guy, one of the most important people in, I would say, the country, actually. But, you know, I was president, and now it looks like I was going to be maybe president again, so I figured I could ask him to hold. So I asked him to hold.
Well, Shelby Williams with us, political strategist for the Republican Party. What is going to be Elon Musk's role, Mr. Williams? A star is born. Is he going to be the cost cutter, the word that, he's labeled Elon Musk with? And what kind of a role did Elon Musk also play? Because everybody saw him campaigning in Philadelphia. I'm sure he was also able to capture a lot of youth and American imagination out there.
There's no question about that. That's absolutely right. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, of course, the whole platform changed. A lot of the people who were loyal Twitter content creators left the platform, or at least got swamped by all the new people who joined on after Musk took over. But once Musk started coming out publicly in favor of Republican policies, and particularly President Trump, that really helped elevate President Trump in the eyes of youth who had for a long time looked at Elon Musk as kind of a hero. And of course, Elon started to take on a lot of criticism after that, but that didn't really change the opinion of a lot of the people who had already formed their opinion of Musk. The people criticizing Musk after that were the people whose minds were never going to be changed anyway. And so Elon Musk did have a lot of influence there. And I think more than cost cutting, he's going to bring, sure, it will cut the cost of federal government, which is sky high, astronomical to begin with, but I think he's going to bring a level of innovation and efficiency that maybe the federal government has never seen. And that's what's going to drive the reduction in cost, but better, the increase in efficiency, which is why he was branded the Secretary of Government Efficiency, not the Secretary of Cost Cutting.
Secretary of Government Efficiency, not cost cutting. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal also with us on the broadcast. Take a look at this, Ambassador. I'm looking at Dow Jones surging 1,200 points at market opening following Trump's victory. Soon to be Second Lady Usha Wentz's Indian village expects her help after Donald Trump's victory. Already, those far-reaching ripple effects of Donald Trump's victory. You earlier threw some light on what did not work out for Kamala Harris. What do you think worked out exponentially for the GOP?
Well, there were many factors which worked in favor of the GOP. Of course, my co-panelist, who is from Texas, will be in a better position to highlight them because he is from the Republican Party. But I think that the failures of the Biden administration in many areas became factors on which the Republican Party was able to strengthen its outreach. Now, Trump has said that he would be raising tariffs. And of course, he has mentioned China as a country. But incidentally, he has also mentioned that he is not at all happy with the high tariffs which India charges. And therefore, he plans to impose higher tariffs on Indian products. Now, of course, higher tariffs will raise prices of imported goods. But this sort of a message has an appeal with local Americans, because if he is seen to be protecting American products or products made in America, then it goes down with a lot of voters. Then again, what did work in his favor was his pledge to take action against illegal immigrants. He said, we will complete the wall. If you remember, in his first term, he had started building the wall, which is not yet complete. And he has said that the promises which he has made, he will keep. And this sort of message has gone down well because, as I said, illegal immigrants are a factor of concern.
Certainly.
Now, you were earlier talking about the foreign policy related aspects of Donald Trump's new administration. We talked about the Russia-Ukraine war, but the other major conflict is the Middle East war. Now, everybody in America wants this war to end also because it is affecting them in a variety of ways. Donald Trump will stand solidly behind Israel. He has said that. He solidly backs Israel. And the outfits like Hamas and Hezbollah, Houthis, he has openly called them as terrorists. And he has avowed that he would be taking concrete steps to curb global terrorism. Now, that, of course, works well for us because we have great concerns about the phenomena of terrorism. And I think we will try and work with him on this whole question of curbing terrorist activities in any part of the world, including, of course, terrorist activities directed against us. We also briefly mentioned Bangladesh. I think you made a mention of it. A lot of people in India were very heartened by President Donald Trump's strong criticism of the violence against the Hindu minority in Bangladesh. And it is expected that he will translate his words into action. That is to say, he will pressurize the Bangladesh government to treat the Hindu minority community in a more apt fashion to protect them and not unleash violence against them through its street workers. So these are some aspects which are important. But there are some other factors which have directly influenced the success of the Donald Trump campaign. And of course, the support of the gun lobby cannot be ignored. You know, America has had a lot of incidents of gun-related violence, and there have been cries for coming down heavily on the freely available guns in America, and there has been cries for gun control. But Donald Trump has been supportive of the gun lobby, and the gun lobby is very powerful. So they have rallied behind him also, and I think the sort of backing that he got from a number of very prominent people like Elon Musk. I understand that Elon Musk has given more than $119 million to him. And this despite the fact that Donald Trump has said that he would be removing the subsidies which are given to electric vehicles, because Musk has said that his vehicles will do very well in any case. But I think Elon Musk is eyeing government support for SpaceX, which is his other big project, and which would like to have a bigger share in government-launched rockets. So there are various factors, but there is no doubt about the fact that this relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk will grow.
And people are liking it as well. I'll tell you what, Ambassador. People on the internet are certainly liking it. But I'm running out of time, Ambassador. Sorry to cut you short over there. Pramit Pal, I'm going to come to you for the last word. We've already spoken about the race, ethnicity, the gender gap, the age gap. But we must talk about, the location as well. Mr. Williams was talking about suburban female voters going with Donald Trump. But rural voters have single-handedly, welcomed Donald Trump back into the White House.
Well, rural voters have traditionally voted strongly for the Republican Party, so that isn't a complete surprise. But this time the turnout among them seems to have been much higher. And I think one of the good things for Trump in his campaign was his ability to turn out the base of his party, if you wish. She needed to actually increase or match or probably do a little better than Biden in urban areas, which she did not. And in suburban areas, as been mentioned, she actually did much worse than Biden did. So in the end result, she couldn't really put together the kind of vote base that she needed, the coalition that she needed, and couldn't get them to come out in a manner that she needed to defeat Trump. And the fact that she basically trailed Biden in almost every demographic, geographical area, minority group, class group, basically doomed her electoral chances.
All right. Mr. Shelby Williams, the final say to you. We know that Kamala Harris, the Vice President, is going to be addressing the gathering tonight, but we'll have to wait and watch for that. What does the next 48 hours look like for the Republican administration, even as we end the show?
Well, the celebration is going to continue for a little while, but certainly President Trump is already getting to work. He started to get to work before the election and showed that he was creating basically a preemptive transition team which is something he didn't do in 2016. But I think it's important, and they are already knuckling down to figure out what's going to happen once they take office in January, and the very first things that they're going to do to undo some of the moves and some of the wreckage, shall we say, of the last 4 years.
All right, then. We're going to leave it there, gentlemen. Ambassador Dayal, always a pleasure speaking to you. Pramit Pal, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining to News 9. And Shelby Williams, political strategist, joining us live from Texas, USA. Many, many thanks for joining us and helping us out with your insightful inputs on this particular point. Ladies and gentlemen, the next 30 days, that's something that people will have to look at, or at least the next 20 days, even as the Republican administration shapes up. What's going to happen with Elon Musk? What is Kamala Harris now going to say on the domestic front and on the international front? What are Donald Trump's first moves going to look like? Well, we don't know for the time being. It's just cute little Donald Trump steps at this point in time. Many thanks for watching. Top News continues on the other side. Keep it with News 9.
Look what happened. Is this crazy? Fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you. And I believe the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?